Welcome to this tutorial brought to you by Tutvid.com. Let's take a look at creating this cool flip clock. This tutorial was inspired by 365psd.com. I'll have a link to the graphic that inspired this tutorial. 365psd.com creates awesome free PSDs for download, a new PSD every single day, and it's pretty high quality stuff. You want to go check that out for sure. This is also another tutorial in the series of videos that Howard from Iceflow Studios and I are doing on web elements. Let's get started. I'm going to bring back the Photoshop interface and I'm going to create a new document, Command or Control R. I'm going to give it a name, call it Flip Clock R, and a width of 1280, a height of 720 is perfect. Resolution 72 pixels per inch is going to be just awesome. Go ahead and hit OK. Here's our new document. Wonderful. Now, we need to go ahead and set our foreground color to a dark gray. So I'm going to choose, actually I believe the brightness I want is about 20. Yeah, it's 20% brightness, and that's a hexadecimal code of 333333. Hit OK, and then fill this guy, hitting Alt Backspace, that'll be Option Return on the Mac. Now go ahead and create a new layer. The hotkey to just create a new layer, no frills, is just Control Shift Alt N, that'll be Command Shift Option N on the Mac. Just bam, just going to drop a new layer in there for you. I'm going to name this layer Glow, and I'm going to grab my gradient tool. Now, what I want to do with the gradient is select that little gradient line, and I want to choose foreground to transparent. It's going to take my foreground color and fade it to nothing. Hit OK. We also want to draw a radial gradient. Everything else is pretty much going to remain the same. Just make sure you've got dither checked on. It's going to help with banding that could appear on our gradient. I'm going to open up my foreground color because obviously if I just do the same exact gray as the background, we're going to see nothing. So we want to brighten this up a little bit. So let's bring the brightness up to maybe 30%, maybe just a touch darker. I'll go 28%. So it's 474747. Hit OK. And just draw a gradient from about the middle of your document straight to one of the edges. Maybe a little beyond one of the edges, just like that. Now, if I zoom in on this, you can see there is banding. I don't know how well you can see it in the video, but there's fairly noticeable banding. It's definitely there, and if you've done it, I'm sure you're seeing about the same thing. One of the best ways to combat this banding, which is sort of a common problem if you use big blurs on blocks of color, or you're using sort of some color to transparent gradients or transparency in your gradients. This is just a sort of a side tip here within this tutorial. All we need to do to get rid of that is add a little bit of noise. That's essentially what dithering does, which is what theoretically is supposed to stop that banding. But without getting into a ridiculous level of technical detail, let's just add a little bit of noise to this glow layer, because I do want to add noise to this background anyway, so maybe it'd be cool if we just add it to the glow layer and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and 3% noise is probably about what I want. Distribution of uniform and monochromatic. We're not looking to introduce any kind of color. Hit OK, and you can see that banding has completely disappeared. So that's awesome. We're just going to set the blend mode of this layer to screen. Next, what we're going to want to do is make sure our foreground color is in fact 474747. Whatever the color of that glow was should be perfect. And we're going to grab the rectangle tool. We're going to set it to draw shape layers, just like that. I'm also going to open up my info panel, that's Window Info. And I'm doing this because I want these shapes to be about 180 pixels by 180 pixels. That's all the layer styles that I've sort of figured out here. They work best at 180 by 180. Now, if you want them to be bigger or smaller, you can scale your layer styles as well. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to drag out a shape. And notice there on my info panel, I've got my little width and height telling me right there, we're at 180 by 180. So I'm going to drop it. Got my shape. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so it's easier to see on this video and easier for me to see. We're going to add a gradient overlay to this shape. So I'm going to go Layer, Layer Style, Gradient Overlay. The gradient overlay I want is going to start over here at black. So that's a hexadecimal code of just all zeros. And it's going to run over to the right here, a hexadecimal code of 262626. Hit OK. And what I want to do is commit that change, and I want to just hit reverse. I want the lighter portion of this gradient to be at the bottom of my shape. So you see, it's very subtle, but it is there. Subtlety is key here in this case. We also want to just apply a little stroke to this. However, before we apply the stroke, I just want to make sure my foreground color is set to white because we're going to use a foreground to transparent gradient. So hit OK, and I'm going to hit the letter D, which is going to revert to my default colors, which are black and white. Hit X to flip the foreground and background color. White is now my foreground color. Next, we'll go Layer, Layer Style, Stroke. And it's going to give us just the default 3-pixel black stroke. Go to Fill Type and change it to Gradient, and select the gradient and just choose Foreground to Transparent. Hit OK. We're going to set the position to inside, and we're going to set the size to 1, and we're going to go ahead and set the angle to 90 degrees. At this point, all you need to do is just drop that opacity way down, and I mean way down. We're going to go like 10 or 12, something around that. I'll just go with 10, and hit OK. Let's just jump over here, and we'll rename this layer Flip Face. It's the face of our flip clock. We're going to duplicate this layer, Command or Control J, and rename this Top Front, and we're going to drag it below the flip face layer. We're going to go Layer, Layer Style, Clear Layer Style. Just wipe all that junk out of there. We want to apply a drop shadow and a gradient overlay to this layer. However, before we do that, you want to just make sure you grab your Move tool and just nudge this guy downward 5 pixels. So just hit the down arrow key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just bump that guy right down, and we're going to go Layer, Layer Style, Drop Shadow. To start with our drop shadow, we're going to set the blend mode to normal. We're going to set it to a color of white. The opacity, we're going to reduce it way down to about 10. Uncheck Use Global Light, set the angle to 90 degrees, set the distance to 1, and the size to 0. Just a very subtle, straight line running across the bottom of our shape. Then we're going to go Gradient Overlay. Now, with the Gradient Overlay, again, we're going to create a very, very subtle gradient. We're going to leave everything here as it is. I love everything. All we need to do is actually change the colors of the gradient. So select the gradient bar. I'm going to double click on the white handle, and we're going to set this to 191919. So 10% brightness. Again, very, very subtle. And then we're going to drag this handle all the way down. I'm actually going to key in the location. So select that handle, and then just select location and set it to 5%. So it's bringing it way down. Hit OK. You can see if we tick off Gradient Overlay, turn it on, we are getting a color change down there. Go ahead and hit OK to commit those changes. Let's just duplicate this top front layer now, Command or Control J, and again drag it beneath top front, and we're going to name this bottom front. This layer, we're going to just shift down 10 pixels. So again, make sure your Move tool is selected. You can just hold down your Shift key and tap the down arrow, and it's going to bump that way down. Cool. Go Layer, Layer Style, clear these layer styles right out of there. What we need to apply here is, first and foremost, a Gradient Overlay. And we'll probably just stick with a Gradient Overlay, come to think of it. Let's go Layer, Layer Style, Gradient Overlay. All I want to do is change my actual gradient, so I'm going to select the gradient stripe here, and I'm going to set it to another very dark color. So I'm going to double click on the white, and I'm going to set it to 1A, 1A, 1A. So pretty dark. Go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to set the location here to 5 pixels, or excuse me, 5% as well. Hit OK to commit those changes, and hit OK up here again to commit those changes. You can see what we've got going on down there. It looks almost like a little stacked button now. Now, yet again, we're going to duplicate this layer. So Command or Control J, and I'm going to name this guy Shadow. Now, because this is the shadow, we want to drag it below all of our shape layers. Not the glow or the background, that's making up our background. And here again, I'm going to go Layer, Layer Style, Clear Layer Style. We just really want to start with a clean slate for all of these. What we want to do with this layer, with the layer style we're going to apply to this shape layer, is we're going to just use a big drop shadow. So I'm going to go Layer Style, Drop Shadow, and I'm going to set the blend mode to normal. You can actually leave it at multiply if you want. I'm going to go to normal here just for the sake of what we're doing. And I'm going to bring the opacity way up to 100%. This is going to be kind of intense. We're going to deselect Use Global Light, and we're going to set the angle to 90 degrees. We're going to set the distance to 0. We're going to set the spread to 15%. And I'm going to set the size to something like 25 pixels. So a huge, very soft, strong drop shadow. Go ahead and hit OK. And now because this is a layer style, it's a live effect. So if we just edit this vector mask a little bit, our layer style, is going to edit along with that. So it's kind of a cool little thing to consider. And the reason that's important is because right now, I mean, I like the shadow, I like the way it looks, but I think it'd be even cooler and add a little bit more depth to the image if we faded off the back of the shadow a little bit. Almost made that shadow disappear under the shape a little. We can do that by selecting that vector mask and going Edit, Transform Path, Perspective. And we grab either the top right or the top left anchor handle and just drag it inward a little bit. So really start to fade that shadow off. We don't want to go too far, but just far enough that the shadow really begins to fade off for us, and then just commit those changes, and there's the new shadow we have. So an interesting shadow, but it's a live effect still here as a layer style. So a cool little trick. And what we want to do next is just grab our flip face layer here, Command or Control J to duplicate it. Let's give it a name of Topper, why not, something crazy, or just very generic, and go Layer, Layer Style, Clear Layer Style. Knock those layer styles right out of there, and we're left with a plain gray box, which is just what we want. We're going to go Command or Control T at this point. We're We're going to select the top center reference point right there. Yep, reference point location. Photoshop's helping me out. And we're going to set the height here to 50% and just commit those changes. Go ahead and hit the check icon. And we've got a gray shape that's exactly half the height of the underlying shape. And because we set the reference point to the top center location, it's just pulling it up against the top of our underlying shape as well, which is exactly what we want, because we're going to reduce the opacity of this layer to about 30%. And if we zoom in here on this guy, you're going to see it just gives us sort of a subtle split, almost the start for a flip clock, so it's flipping as if it's a Rotolux, or excuse me, a Rolodex. I'm confusing it with a brand of softbox. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and create sort of the little clasps that would be dropped in there. And we're going to use the type tool to do that. So actually, let's zoom back in here and grab the type tool. And I'm just going to use, well, let me give you my type settings here. Here's my character panel. And I'm going to set my type tool to draw at 14 point. The line height can be set to auto. We're not going to do any kind of kerning or letter spacing of any sort. And just a font color of white is perfect. So go ahead and hit the type tool. And I'm just going to use a square bracket. So the square bracket, and then hit the little check icon to commit the changes. Let me hide my character panel here to get it out of the way. I'm going to grab my move tool. And we're going to position this guy right up here over against the left side of what would be our flipping clock. And I guess let's reduce the opacity of this down until it looks good. So let's see, about 50 is actually kind of nice. Let's see if we go, oh, there we go. 40 is cool because we can really sort of even see the bend in what would be sort of the pages of our flipping clock. I really like 40. We're going to duplicate this, Command or Control J, hit Command or Control T to bring up free transform, and you can just right click and hit flip horizontal. Commit those changes and drag him straight across to the other side. They'll snap into place. And I'm actually going to bump 1 pixel off the right hand side. And there we go, we've got our clasps set in place. Now let's just grab the text tool again, and what we're going to do is we're going to put our first number here in the center. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit with the type tool, and I'm just going to type the number 32. I've been kind of digging 32 for some reason, I don't really know why. And it's way, way, way too small, so I'm going to make it a bit bigger. I'm going to use the character panel, however. Normally, probably I wasn't recording this, and I didn't need to explain to you guys what size it was. I'd probably just hit Command or Control T and use the free transform tools, but we'll mess with maybe the kerning as well in here. So let's up the size to 140 points, 140 points, so it's going to be quite large. Again, we don't need to worry about line height, we're on one line. I want to smash these letters together a little bit closer, so let's try something like -50. That brings them a little bit closer, I like it. And let's also change the color here. I want to give them sort of a light gray color. So let's try something like B2, B2, B2. There we go, that's super cool. Go ahead and hit OK. And again, oh, I'm also using bold. So I've got my typeface set to be bold as well. Now that we've done that, grab your move tool and just sort of position this to the center. You're probably going to want to position it by eye. If you try to align it by loading this layer as a selection and aligning left, right, top, bottom, sometimes it doesn't look quite as good, I don't think. But it's actually not bad. I'm just going to nudge it over 1 or 2 pixels and maybe nudge it down a couple. There we go. Something like that is really cool. Let's just throw a subtle gradient overlay on this text to give it a little bit of depth and a little bit of just take it from being this flat one color to add just a nice little highlight along the bottom of the text. Make sure your foreground color is set to white and go layer, layer style, gradient overlay. We're just going to give it just a plain and simple foreground transparent gradient. What I want to do here, though, is drag this opacity slider back to a location of about 35%. So we just have a nice highlight along the bottom. Go ahead and hit OK. Hit OK again, and you can see there is our text. Next, grab your topper layer here, and we're going to duplicate it and bring it up on top of our 32 layer. So I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key and just drag that layer right up and drop it. You can see it's going to drop that gray square right above the top of the text. And actually, now that I'm looking at the text, let's reduce the opacity of that gradient overlay. Just double click on the FX icon in your layers panel and select gradient overlay, and let's knock this guy down to, let's go 50%, knock it down a few percentage points less than that. So 45% is what I'm settling on. Hit OK. Back up to the topper layer here. We want to apply both a drop shadow and a gradient overlay to this. Let's start with the drop shadow. So let's go layer, layer style drop shadow. And we're going to set the opacity of this drop shadow to 20%. Blend mode, I'm going to kick it to normal and deselect to use global light, set the angle to 90. And we're going to set the distance to 0 and just give it a size of 2. Actually, let's bump it up a little bit. I just want there to be a very subtle drop shadow coming out beneath this, and it's difficult to see because of the fill opacity, so I'm actually going to jack the regular opacity back up to 100% and knock the fill opacity down to 0%. You can see it's almost giving us a subtle split across those letters. And we can increase this if we like, if we decide we want to, add a little bit more of a blur. By all means, you can do that. Now let's go down to the gradient overlay. And we're basically just going to give this another nice foreground to transparent layer, gradient, excuse me. And we're going to reduce the opacity to, let's try 30%, and just set this to a blend mode of overlay. So it's just going to give us a very subtle effect. Again, we're just trying to make it look like these sort of flipped pages are bending in at the center where they naturally would be if you were sort of looking at these pages that are flipping over and over and over themselves. So once we've done that, go ahead and hit OK to commit those changes. I'm really liking the way it's looking now, so let's just go ahead and I'm going to move up my document a little bit here, and I'm going to grab the text tool, and let's just drop in the little tag of days above this, as if there are 32 days left to wait. However, just glance up here at the tool options bar. We probably don't want the size to be 140 pixels, so let's do something smaller, like 24 points. So here I'm going to type days in all capitals. Actually, I'm not going to do all capital letters. I'm going to show you something here. Let's just type out the word days, commit that. Might be a little large, but actually I kind of like it. Let's go window character. And here's what we want to do. We're not going to make this bold. Let's go back to regular. And really, this is up to you, the way you want this text to look. But in the character panel, there's this double T icon. And this basically just means, hey, whatever word is up here, just always make it capitalized, or capitalize every letter. So I hit that, and it's going to, bam, bring me up to days full like that. I actually like it being compressed together here with this -50 kerning. And cool, I really like it. Let's just throw a quick gradient over it by going layer, layer style, gradient overlay. And essentially, I'm just going to go for a light gradient at the bottom to a darker gradient at the top. Nothing too crazy. So I'm going to bring this to an almost white, fairly bright down here. Let's go 90% brightness. All right. And then over here on the white side, let's set this to like a 75% brightness maybe. Yeah, let's go 70% brightness. 70% brightness is cool. Hit OK. Hit OK again. And there we have it. You can throw a little drop shadow under this if you like, but let's keep it simple, keep it clean. I'm going to grab my move tool, and we can center this. Actually, we can center it above this shape just by loading any one of these masks as a selection. So I'm just going to grab this topper, loads that as a selection. And despite the fact that our text layer is outside of the selection, we can still align to that selection. So hey, align to the horizontal, align along the vertical horizontal axis of that selection. Command or Control D to deselect, and let's just zoom out a little bit. So there's the first part of our clock. At this point, it's just a piece of cake. You duplicate it a few times, you align it, and you're done. So let me just show you how that's done, so you also have a better grasp of, sort of aligning groups and all that, how we would align multiple layers. I'm going to select the days layer, which is the tag we just created. Hold down my Shift key and select all the way down to the shadow layer. Hit Command or Control G to group that into a layer group folder. Double click on that, and let's give it a name of days. This is our days folder. Great. Drag this guy down to the new groups icon. Double click on the group, and let's name this hours. And actually, you can bring up that dialog right away by just holding down the Alt or Option key. So Alt, drag, drop on the new layer icon. Here we are. And let's say minutes. And again, Alt or Option, drag to the new layers icon. And let's say seconds. So we've got days, hours, minutes, seconds. I've got the seconds folder selected. With my move tool, as long as we don't have our auto select option turned on, you can just grab the entire chunk of layers, that entire folder of layers, and just move it around. So let's go minutes, and let's move that over. I'm going to grab days here, and I'm going to pull it way over here to the left. There we go. And then hours, I'm going to kind of drop it right in here in the center. Now, obviously, we need to align all these guys, so we can select all these layer groups, and it's going to align the layer groups as if they were individual layers. It's not going to knock all of our, individual layers within these layer groups out of whack and start messing things up for us. So if I just say, hey, align all this stuff right there to the middle, there we go, cool. But you can see that we've got different spacing options. Well, we can say, hey, distribute evenly along the horizontals. There we go, and we've spaced it all out nice and great. What we can do at this point, if you want to align all four of these as a group, horizontally and vertically within the document, group all of these groups by Command or Control G into one massive group. Just load the entire document as a selection, Command or Control A, and there we go, align a horizontal, verticals, or maybe vice versa. But there we go, we got the job done. And then at this point, what I would do is I'd just right-click on this group and just say ungroup these layers, get me back to my other groups. All that's left to do at this point is to go in here, select days. Remember, we're automatically setting the text to capitalize all the letters, so we don't even have to capitalize if we don't like it, or if we don't feel like it. So we're going to say hours, and I'm going to change this to 17. I'll say 32 days, 17 hours. Cool. And let's name this minutes. And let's say, oh, I don't know, how many minutes should we do? I shouldn't even be worrying about this. Let's go 08, just so we've got one digit number in there. It's just going to be a good idea to keep 2 digits in there so everything's kind of conforms to the same template, if you will, as you move across your flip clock. And then the last is seconds, and Command or Control Enter to commit those changes. And then let's just say 59 seconds. So we're just about to change to the next minute. And there you go. That's the essence of creating the flip clock. If you wanted, you could just go ahead and create a quick lighting effect to drop over this. You know what? Why not? Now that I've mentioned it, just hold down Control Shift Alt. That'd be Command Shift Option on the Mac, and hit the letter N to create a new layer. We're gonna go Edit, fill it with a 50% gray, and then we're gonna go Filter, Render, Lighting Effects. And I'm gonna just make this like a spotlight coming in from the top right corner, like so. Hit OK. And then just set this to a blend mode of screen. Let's see what that looks like. Kind of cool. Reduce the opacity way down, and you can see we just threw a little bit of a lighting effect over our flip clock. So that's it. You've created this flip clock, and it's now ready to be taken and used in any of your projects that you want to use it in. Make sure you go check out the site. That's www.tutvid.com for more great free video tutorials, and also follow Tutvid on Facebook as well as @Tutvid on Twitter. I'll catch you around.